I welcome you all to today's AMA session at Unshackled, and today we have with us Monish Khambhati. Welcome, Monish.
Hey, glad to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us today, and we're going over the journey of how Monish actually took a decision from moving from California or primarily US to Canada, and how has his journey been. And right now, Monish is working as a data engineer at MobSquad in Vancouver, Canada. And we'll be discussing his journey, what are the learnings, how we can make those decisions with more information, much informed, and how are we going to proceed if any of our community member or any of the member is actually planning to do so.
Sure.
Would you be open to give us a whole spiel, like, where did you start? How has your journey been? From CS Long Beach to your to making a move. And
Sure. So I did my bachelor's back in India and finished it in 2018. And I opted in to do my master's right after I finished my undergrad. So I came to United
Nice.
States, went for my master's to Cal State Long Beach in 2018, and I graduated during peak COVID season in 2020. At that time, I it took a while for me to like get my first full-time job. I got my first full-time job in September of 2020. I was on my OPT initially, and I went through three prize for my H1B in 2021, 2022, and 2023. Uh, those were across two different employers. And in 2023 March, I actually realized that I wasn't picked up for the lottery on, like, I think it was March 31. Uh, it's natural that you'd feel disappointed at that time that things were going fine, you were getting settled in your career, and you were there for like almost 5 years in US, and things start to feel kind of bad. So I actually like took 1 or 2 days to think about my situation and going from there. Uh, so I on the day that I knew from the HR for my company that I was working in US, I actually thought of handling the situation, and I went on creating like a Google Doc for myself on what are my options. So at that time, I was thinking about three primary options that I could take. So one option was to uh, relocate to Canada. Second option was to go back to India. And the third option, which I think is sort of like a gray area, to do like day one CPT, which I think it's very popular these days, like a lot of people opting to do. And I went ahead and created like a Google Doc with all the pros and cons about each option. And I think the next day I scheduled like a one-on-one with my manager and went over all the options, pros and cons. And there were like certain discussion with with like Mob Squad and the company that I was working in US, and
Mhm.
things worked out, and I moved here in on July 31st, which is almost August, and I've been here since 2.5 months now.
I see. I see. Thank you so much, Monish, for sharing that. So it definitely is. It definitely took a toll when you wanted to stay, in the United States, or for that matter, like, just as you were kind of shocked and kind of in dilemma whether which option to take, and so throwing light on a few of the options which you just said, right? One was to relocating to Canada, another was day one CPT. So, what made you take a move that, confidently moving to Canada would be a better option than all of the alternatives? And what did you actually gauge that, okay, if I were to take option B or C instead of this, then these would be the roadblocks which you were like, okay, that's a no-no for me. I would rather opt for relocating to Canada than actually stay here, because there is process involved in all of these steps, right? So let's discuss about that a bit.
Yeah, sure. So I think relocating to Canada was my first priority, just because I think I would be able to work within North America. The other thing was I was able to kind of work within the same time zone as the company I was working with. The other two option I did not wanted to take was like relocating to India because of the time zone difference, and I also wanted to stay somewhere in North America because I like being here, right? So, and also it makes it very hard when once you relocate to India and coming back to the US. So I wasn't able to like think through too many options of getting back here, and it was all feeling very hard initially to go to India and then find an employer who is willing to like enroll me in H1 or through L1 or whatever process that would be. So and also like having a full-time job, you feel like a bit secured, right? So it's very hard to like directly take that huge risk of leaving the full-time job and getting back to India and then look for employers. So it going to India wasn't like the option that I wanted to personally take. And regarding the third option, day one CPT, I feel like the only reason I didn't go with day one CPT was the ability to not travel back to my home country. And the second reason was I wouldn't still be able to fix the problem that I was facing from its roots, right? Because I'd still have to win the H1B lottery once within the 2 years, or take that option after 2 years to relocating to Canada or India, depending upon, because you aren't going to like continue doing all those day one CPT courses until you get like the H1B lottery. And back in March, it wasn't very clear since the number of lottery applications were constantly increasing. Last year it was around 4,000 or 400,000 or 500,000, and this year it was around 850,000. So I actually thought that I would have to find my way out of this situation. Otherwise, it would be kind of complete like mess up with my long-term career goals, as well as like not being able to travel to my home country whenever I want. And I think that was also like playing in my mind, right? Like you have like your family in India, and you have to plan your travels going back to your home country whenever you are in US. And that situation wasn't like I wasn't able to like see myself getting into that situation somehow, and I decided to make this move just because of the reasons I highlighted.
I see. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing those, because uh, it definitely gives you a flexibility when you are in legal terms and you can actually go back, come back again from your home country. And so, just to re-summarize, so what Monish just shared is, ability to work in the same time zone was a priority, and you were able to uh, stay in a situation where you could go and visit your home country without any repercussions, or like, for the gray area where, certain times, just as in you said, for the day one CPT, you won't be able to come back, or there are certain conditions which would be imposed if you were to take those options. And third was, it makes harder, or it definitely have to you definitely have to reiterate the process of getting some employer who are willing to sponsor your visa, H1B, and then bringing you back to the US. Jackie is asking, how would you compare the immigration process in the USA and Canada? So, from a standpoint of an immigrant, and where you had that flexibility moving to Canada, that you would be able to visit back your home if you were to ever take some time off from your studies, or take your time off from your employer, you would be able to. So let's throw some light on this aspect, that how would making or staying in Canada would make the situation flexible to you.
Sure. I think in USA, if you are there, you on H1B, you probably have to plan a lot of things before you go back, leave the country. So some of my friends who are already on H1B, right, that if their stamping has expired, they probably can't even come to Canada or go to Mexico for that sake, because they have to go to home country to get stamped. I think there was like the bill that was recently passed, but I'm not sure how far is that bill. But I always saw in my situation that if you're H1B, you always have to like plan your travels. And there's also like a thing, right? We all like, I'm not sure what people are working into, but I work in tech sector, right? So there's always also the thing with like the layoffs. So you always have to like find a new employer in 60 days, or you have to leave your country. So this decision that I made also got like more simpler because I did not have any dependents. I actually took this decision relatively earlier in my career. So in Canada, I think you can, if you are on work permit, you can basically travel to any country that you want without any, and come back without any sort of organizing your travel or dates and stuff. You just can take time off and go back wherever you like and come back whenever you want. There are like certain rules to it, but those are not as strict as in US. The path to the permanent residency also makes it very simple here. I actually, with MobSquad, I was able to like file my PR right after a month I got in here with the US work experience. So if things go well, I would probably get my permanent residency by next year in Canada. So that thing also is like an important factor when you compare like both of the immigration processes. And after I get my PR, the path to citizenship also is like, the rules are like very clearly defined, and there is no like lottery sort of system as compared to US when you compare like the immigration system for Canada.
Yeah, and I totally believe so, because the Canadian immigration system is more like meritorious, where you have to, meet a certain requirement or threshold, just so as you gain points over them. Whereas in United States, it's more so like, you have to go through a lottery. So that's
Right.
the time where luck comes in, and you
Yeah.
don't have you don't have any power over that process. And
Yeah.
that perfectly answer one of the question which was submitted, is like, from the time when you decided to move to Canada, how long did it take you for you to get the PR? So Monish is currently working on getting a PR. He has already
Yeah.
filed.
It's just
Yeah.
2.5 months since I entered Canada, so my PR process is still under the works. I'm currently on a closed work permit, which allows me to work for my employer for 3 years. So I could work for 3 years and then potentially also can file extension if I never get a PR in any case. But that is like a very unlikely event. I would potentially get my PR by next year.
I see. And specifically, just to reiterate, Monish here is talking about a tech background. So he had enough experience in US, where he was able to use that to get towards the, like, the meritorious points which we were talking about, that was kind of like a head start in that case, right, Monish?
Right. Yeah. I come from a STEM background. I had a master's degree in computer science, and I was working in like the specialty occupation. I was a data scientist for 1.5 years, and then I switched my career into data engineering. So those fields sort of get a higher point as compared to some non-tech or even for some other fields, right? So that actually helped me boost my profile, and that meritorious system that you were talking about, Ankit, actually helped me to file my PR as soon as I entered the country.
We would like to discuss more, like, why Mob Squad, and how has the transition been carried out for you, and how were you able to make a decision to move forward with Mob Squad?
I think MobSquad is in its unique position to help folks like me. I During March, I did not know anyone who was helping any other companies who was helping people like me in this H1B situation. So I think At that time, I only knew MobSquad, and I also don't currently know any other another company that would help me. So if you have your company's presence in Canada, it is relatively easy to do like an intercompany transfer. But the company that I worked for in US didn't have like an office in Canada or a presence in Canada. So that made it like really challenging for me to make move with that company directly, right? For that matter, I also applied for like the express entry profile last year, but my score was too low since I didn't had like 3 years of work experience at that time. And I guess that option didn't like come into place. And the time came before my July 5 was like my last day for my STEM OPT. So I had to make that decision with moving with MobSquad, and I think the transition has been like way smoother than I thought. People in MobSquad are like really flexible with everything. They work with your employer to just make everything flexible for you, including like the benefits, the pay, and they also help you like find everything here in Canada if you need. They have like a community team, they have HR team, they have everyone. For that matter, I would also like to share like one really nice experience. I landed in Vancouver at like 2 a.m. in the morning on like July 31st, and they were there to receive me at 2 a.m. in the Vancouver airport. So I guess the transition throughout has been super nice, and I would also like to share like the timeline and how things worked out for me. As I already mentioned, March 31st, or like the first week of April, I knew that H1B isn't going to be like an option for me, right? So I had to start getting in touch with my manager, who in turn got touch with MobSquad. And I think there were like few conversations where HR was involved, and there was also like a legal contract review at my previous company. And they did all these processes within like I think it could have been faster, but things were like taking time because it was also like a new option for the company that I was working for, right? They didn't move anyone before with before in this situation. So in June, I actually got to know that they were ready to support this decision. On June 26th, I think I signed my contract. On July 12th, I think of this year, I got my first step in the work permit, which is called LMIA. It's called Labor Market Impact Assessment, which is like the first step of the work permit. You need that LMI approval to file for your work permit. And on July 20, I got my work permit approved. I sent my passport. On July 28th, I think I got my passport back. And I flew on like late night on July 30 and got here on July 31st. And for that matter, I started working on July 31st with my company that I was working in US. So I think this was like more smoother, relatively faster, and very flexible overall. And I think MobSquad has its like a unique position for helping folks like me in the situation. And if your company doesn't have a presence in Canada, they definitely like make things easier for you.
I see. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for going over the process as well. And I really like the sweet gesture from the MobSquad team to have you, taken care of at such, odd hours. I would say.
Right.
To re-summarize things a bit, which we just discussed, is like the seamless experience they have for you in situation where even if they haven't really worked with an employer, with your employer previously, but they were able to make a channel and kind of make situations and all of the processes go through, just as you said, be it benefits, be it your compensation, and taking all of the behind the scene work, which is like involving papers and stuff. So definitely seems like a move which is smarter, which is worth encouraging to the members, or to anybody who is kind of making or deciding to make that move. Along similar lines, we have a question here which is submitted by Gautam, and he said, if you had an H1B with an approved I-140, would you prefer staying in US or would you still prefer relocating to Canada, given the comparatively lesser income? Also, let's discuss the fact that peace of mind is another thing where you will be able to get a PR and you will be able you'll be on a fast track route there to get a citizenship. And how much of a work difference you are noticing since MobSquad moved you from your company but changed a different location and a country altogether?
I think it really would have depended on the situation. Like I mentioned, I did not have any dependent. I was the only person to move here. It got My decision to move here got like really easy because I had like my priorities. I had some long-term goals which were getting easier with my decision. And also like I I am actually not good with like answering an hypothetical situation because there are like things going on in your life when if you have like an H1B and like an I-140 approved, and there were also like some things going in my life when my H1B didn't like get approved. So I had to like make that decision. But I would say if I had my H1B approved, I was definitely going to stay here. But I would say that last year also I knew that the March 31st, 2023 could be like the day where I would know that I wouldn't have to stay here longer than my stamp OPT expires. So I was already like applying for my express entry profile last year, and I already submitted it because that ability to be free and also like not have that immigration concern is like something that people always like, something that is so important that I would like let USD 50K go for that. So even if I was making
Yeah.
like $50,000 less in Canada, I would definitely prefer that option since I like traveling, number one, and I also like the ability to not go to your family even in your emergency situation is something that I wasn't able to process in my kind of scenario. So I guess it was an easy decision for me to think about it in long term, and I am like relatively early in my career. So there are like a lot of options that could open with like a Canada PR and citizenship going forward. So I guess it got very easier. But if I would have had H1B, I would definitely have stayed. So I would be very honest about that.
Absolutely. Yeah, it depends on what other variables do you have currently going on in your life, and seeing the turbulence which we have seen in the past years. When you graduated in 2020, there was like a whole turbulence around COVID, and people were not able to travel. People were not able to even get certain H1B appointments and stuff. So yeah, that definitely adds to your mindset when you say that, okay, I would rather have freedom to travel. I would rather have freedom to move back and forth between my home country and where you work, as in like work country. So yeah. Other question which we have is, how smooth was the process where Mob Squad has to agree with certain terms and conditions with your company, and what if there have been some mismatch of terms and conditions, and what if they are not exactly aligned with Mob Squad? So this question has been submitted by Gunjan.
I would say that from what I don't know like the exact terms between MobSquad and my company, to be very open with you, but in talking with my manager and HR, they have already had only good things to say about MobSquad. They never faced any issues. Sometimes like things take time and some sort of negotiations definitely happen, but I would say that MobSquad is really flexible in that case. And there are definitely like some solutions that your company could work out and also like MobSquad could work out. So I guess from what I have heard from my manager and HR in the company, I never uh, got any bad things to hear about MobSquad. That I would be very frank about it.
Okay, so there was definitely some middle ground to work, and and I would like to share this with our members. We do have few team members from Mob Squad as well, and if you there has been the question has been answered there too. So please go over those answers, and if you still have some queries about it, or if you would like to know more, you can still shoot some questions in the chat. Another question which we have is, does Mob Squad team helps folks to get a job in Canada? Do they have certain is there a provision to get a job in Canada? And who actually filed for your express entry? Was it you, or was it the Mob Squad team that assisted you with that?
I think I would let Jamie take the first part, Jamie or Nicole, whoever is on the call, but I would answer the second part. I think everything is taken care by the Mob Squad lawyer team. I just had to upload a document on the portal, and everything was taken care by the lawyers, including my work permit and also my application for permanent residency.
I see. I see. Thanks, Jamie, for answering that question in the chat, and maybe we can continue with the others, which are directed at Mob Squad. So, definitely there was a middle ground between things, and it's great that you had a seamless overall experience to go through when you were, because it's a moving countries definitely take a toll on your like
Right.
mental health as well. Like, hey, you would have to look at certain things legally abiding you to work, not work, what is the gray area between things. So what were a few learnings you had along the way that can potentially help some of the members who are thinking of making that decision?
I would say that the ability to think clearly and make good decisions have helped me. The ability to prioritize what is important to you in your life and to be aware about your situation has helped me a lot in making this decision. It wasn't easy, right? I had like friends, I had to leave everything behind in California, but I like to think about things in long term. And I feel like the stability that escaping from US immigration that you get is something that won't justify compensation. At least these are my views, but people could have different views about it, and I'm completely like wary of that. But for me, I think that stability to escape like the constant stress about like immigration was very important, and that's why like that was like the primary reason for me to make this decision, and also like I took this big decision of moving the countries.
Okay. So Jamie would actually like to answer a few of the questions which are in the chat. So a few of the questions are directed at how the Mob Square team helps folks. Do they help with? Do they help them getting a job or such? So yeah, feel free to enlighten us.
Yeah, absolutely. And first of all, thank you, Monish. You're doing an awesome job sharing your story with everyone. So thank you. Yeah, so I've seen some questions come in regarding if your company in the US is not open to an arrangement like this. So we do have another side of our business, which is focused on placing talent with our current clients, looking for new employees to fill their open roles. So currently, as you can imagine, this year has been slow on that front, just given that a lot of companies have paused hiring. But what the good news is we are seeing an uptick in the open positions. So we do have 3 open positions on our website. Our website is mobsquad.io. There's a page called Join Team, and there's 3 open positions we have right now. So what I would recommend anybody, if you're looking for a new opportunity within Canada, we check out those positions on the website, and you can just apply online. Again, this is never guaranteed. Just want to be fully transparent with that. It is fully based on what kind of skill set and experience our clients are looking for. But essentially, if you meet the criteria for an open role, we will put your profile in front of them, and then it works like any normal interview process. You'll go through our interview process, which obviously involves a screening call and a coding test. And then from there, we'll put you in front of the client. You'll do the client's interview process. So a series of interviews. And then if you are the successful candidate in that search process, it's just as the process as Monish explained, is you will sign a contract with us as our employee. We will help you with getting your work permit within 4 to 6 weeks. And then we help you relocate to Canada, and then we contract you back to that company, to a client company, and that's where you do your day-to-day work. But we as MobSquad take care of all things employment related. So we pay your salary, we give you benefits, we provide offices for you to work out of, we have community events that we do. Monish and I recently attended a soccer game in Vancouver. So really a big focus of what we do is also helping you build a community in Canada, because we know oftentimes many people come alone. So it's really important to us to make sure that you feel welcome and build connections and feel like you have a support system here.
That's a really thoughtful act. I just heard, Jamie, that you help kind of transition, not only transitioning like professionally, but also towards like making the life easier, and which actually makes it feel like a home where you have recently moved. So yeah, kudos to that gesture. Also, a few of the questions are, so after the move, are you going to be considered an employee of the MobSquad or of your previous employer?
I think I would be an employee of the MobSquad, but my day-to-day duties and jobs are still similar. So I still perform the same duties I was performing in my previous company. So I guess I hope that answers the question. I would let Jamie add anything if she wants to.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. So you are a MobSquad employee, as Monish said. And the reason for that is obviously in order for us to get you a work permit, you need to be an employee of MobSquad. As an employee of MobSquad in Canada, we pay you obviously in Canadian dollars. You get our benefits package. And then it's a contract situation. But what's unique about our contracts versus some of the consulting firms and things like that is it's not project based. You're just working remotely for your previous company, and your day-to-day doesn't change. It's just how you're being paid that's the only change. So there's really not a huge change to you. The biggest change is obviously you're working remotely and live in Canada now.
I see. Yeah, thanks for answering that, Jamie and Monish. One question which I have popping in my mind is, let's say we talked about in purely tech, a tech employee scenario. So for the folks who are not in the tech, and how MobSquad helped them get a job in Canada, and I'm pretty sure there would be clients who are looking for non-tech talent as well. So how has the process been there from MobSquad to the talent? So just as you said, like there's gonna be a coding call, there like initial screening call, and then there are like coding interviews and stuff. So let's discuss a bit about the non-tech talent as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll speak to this. So we are limited to working with technology and engineering professionals. So software engineers, software developers, data scientists, machine learning experts, civil engineers, electrical engineers. We are limited to, unfortunately, helping those types of roles. And the reason for that is because we can get work permits so quickly. There is fast track immigration pathways that we utilize here in Canada. And right now they are limited to those roles because that is where the labor gap is within Canada. So that is where we're focused on. We also found that with those roles, those are the roles that can mostly be done remotely. And there's been the openness to it globally to have these roles working remotely. So right now we are focused on tech. But of course, we always say if you feel like you're in a tech role, but not 100% sure if you fit our criteria, please just send us an email. You can send an email to me personally. I'll put my email in the chat after this. We also have a form on our website that we encourage you to fill out. We're always happy to engage in a conversation, even just to assess your qualifications, to see if we are able to help you. But that is the reason. Of course, if the government expands that list, which they tend to do on an annual basis based off where there's gaps in the labor market here in Canada, it tends to grow. So as long as that list grows, our ability to help people in different roles will also grow.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, please throw in the MobSquad career page and the emails, so that I see a few of the members are actually interested in looking at the jobs portal, or what they have to offer. So yeah, let's have those connections going there. Perfect. So coming back to Monish, your experience, and just as you shared, a few of the learnings that you had along the way, what are the resources that actually help you find MobSquad and confide that trust in them? So are there any resources or guidelines you would like to share with the folks who are planning to make a move, and specifically for the tech talent out there? Because I see a few of the questions are about compensations and stuff. So any resources, anything like that?
Sure. I think I found MobSquad through, I'm not sure, but there is like a tech community for anonymous chat called Team Blind. You can sign up on that chat, on that app through your company's email. And so I guess I found, I was looking for some post on what other tech professionals like me who are in this situation doing. And I came across this ad, and that's where I first heard about MobSquad. I was able to talk clearly about what my situation was with my manager. And then I think my employer took over the conversation. And I never had to get in touch with any of the MobSquad folks. So I guess one thing that has helped me is you can of course check out the MobSquad website and the IRCC website about the rules. IRCC is basically immigration, refugees, citizenships for Canada. Those are the only two resources that I have to share. But I guess the thing I again mentioned is to understand your priorities. That has helped me. It also has helped me to think more from a long-term perspective and make good decisions and also to think clearly through the situation and what your priorities are. So as far as the resources are concerned, I don't have too many, but I would just recommend folks to look clearly at the situation and understand your priorities. And when it comes to compensation, that is the first thing that comes to your mind, right? But I would say that if you compare everything on a relative scale, I think that there is not too much difference that you would make in US and in Canada. At least that's what was my situation. But if you are in a really high paying role in one of the top areas in US, there might be you might be taking a significant compensation difference. But in my situation, it wasn't that much. So it got real easier for me to make that decision.
It's more so a one size doesn't fit everyone kind of situation, where it depends on an individual case, right? Where people your employer worked with MobSquad and you didn't experience a significant compensation difference, whereas it could differ from company to company and from folks to folks, as in their role and at the level at which they are working right now. IC3, L4, L5. So
exactly.
So it's okay.
And I would also like to add that MobSquad is really flexible. So it depends on the company that you are working with and how you want to make your career and how they are willing to support. I think MobSquad is really flexible with all those options. So you have to make sure that you talk clearly about your priorities and what you are expecting with your company. So that helps them to talk about it with MobSquad. And
I see. So there are definitely communication channels and a room to actually come at a situation where you can work it out with MobSquad and other and your employer. So Siddharth has asked a question where he's like, what's a good CRS score to aim for currently for getting the express entry invitation? Is applying in the stamp specific category or getting a provincial nomination straightforward?
I honestly haven't like researched too much about it because everything was taken care by the lawyers at MobSquad. But what I would say is like they presented me all the options that I had, and there were like all the profile evaluation that the MobSquad lawyers did, and that actually and I like picked the option that felt like safest to me. That was like the PNP route. I'm taking the tech PNP route for the British Columbia to get my permanent residency, but I haven't like researched enough to answer that question about the CRS score and stuff. For that matter, I haven't like checked the IRCC website once because the thing is entirely taken care of by Mob Squad. So
Yeah, so in terms of the score, it's actually publicly listed on because they do category draws about every 2 weeks in Canada. So unlike the H1B lottery that happens once, maybe twice a year, in Canada it's a year-long process and there's draws happening every 2 weeks. The latest draw, the point, you had to have at least 500 points, sorry, 500 points. So that tends to fluctuate over time, but that seems to be kind of the low level. So anything above that, you can be successful. In terms of other PR streams, as Monish mentioned, that's exactly what we do. So what we'll do is based off your points. Once you've landed in Canada, we start your work permit process right away. And the first step in that is figuring out, okay, what are your points? Does it make sense to go through the federal express entry route, which is usually the preferred route we like to go if your points are high enough. But what is great, because we are a Canadian employer, we have the privilege of going through provincial nomination systems as well. So we have access to the BC Tech Pilot or BC Tech program that Monish is going through, the Alberta Tech program, as well as the Atlantic Immigration program. So essentially what we do, we assess what will be the best route for you and your family in terms of getting PR the easiest and the quickest. So that is one unique thing that we can offer at MobSquad is we do have access to these special provincial nomination systems, which can help get PR quicker and way easier. So we assess that right off the gate to see what best route is for you. But yeah, right now for the federal process, it's about 500 points.
I see. So it depends on the case, and it definitely depends on the kind of experience you have had in the past, and how much you do add up to that meritorious list, or your points are there. Another thing which I would like to ask, and Jamie and Monish, whoever can answer that, is there like a certain threshold that beyond or threshold, if that isn't met, MobSquad won't be willing to work with the employer? So in terms of compensation, so let's say it's just XYZ amount of compensation, and is it going to be just directly prorated in Canadian salary, or is it like to have you appear for provincial nominations, or to have you go through making points from the salary basis as well? So is it something that above certain threshold is something that's considered like a go-go?
Yeah, I can jump in on this one and let Monish fill in any blanks. So usually, just given that we're definitely a higher end option because we can offer so much more than just a work permit. Because we can help you with PR, citizenship, we offer office space. We do tend to be on the higher end. So what our focus is usually most of the people that we work with have at least 3 years of work experience. They make usually above $100,000 US a year. And then in terms of, but again, we're always happy to have a conversation. In terms of how that compensation works, is what we do is we take your role and experience and we do a market evaluation in Canada for that role. And our goal is to always pay in the top tier of that band. So let's say for a data engineering role like Monish is in, we will do a market evaluation in all 4 markets that we operate in Canada. So Vancouver, Toronto, Calgary, and Halifax. And we will look at what the going rate is for those roles. And we will take that top end of the band. And that's really where we start our negotiations. So we always try to give our employees the best salary we can. Obviously, it's not dollar for dollar. There's an exchange rate component. There's a cost of living component that involves with moving from the US to Canada. And again, in certain markets in Canada, the salaries are higher and lower depending, again, on cost of living. So that's really how we work. But again, we are completely transparent throughout this process with the individual as well as the company. The individual has to sign off on this employment contract too. So we're not here to gouge. We're here to give the best possible solution we can. But again, we do have to work within the budget constraints of the client as well. So it's just balancing all of that.
I'm hopeful to that does answer the question, and that was pretty detailed. We have this question coming in from the chat. Does MobSquad only takes in consideration and have clients in Canada, or do they also have it in the United States? Just as for a scenario where someone on H-1B, loses their employment and they have this grace period of certain days, 60 days, and if they were to find a job within that time frame, would MobSquad help in that scenario? Do they have clients here, or it's going to be a relocation to Canada and that then kind of like working with the clients which you have currently?
Yeah, we in order to make this work is you'd have to relocate to Canada. That's our whole business model. Because we are a Canadian entity, we cannot get work permits in the US. We are not a US employer, so we're not able to sponsor US visas or anything like that. We are really a solution for those interested in coming to Canada and looking to escape, obviously, the stress of the US immigration system. Obviously, like unfortunately Monish had to deal with. So we're that solution for those wanting to come to Canada. But of course, most of the companies that we work with are US companies that are looking for a solution, that do not have Canadian operations, but want to have people in Canada.
So we have one question from the chat. They are asking that, is there any age limit that MobSquad has for people, or just it's just talent moving from one country to another country? Is there a scenario where you would consider that for the folks trying to make a move from US to Canada?
Yeah, there's no age limit. We will work with anybody. The only thing that we always try to talk through early on in the process is in order for PR, there are points that you get for age. So I'm sure many of you know, as you do get older, you get less points. But that being said, is because we have access to so many different nomination streams, we do have a lot of options. So do not let your age stand in the way. We're willing to obviously try to help anyone we possibly can.
I see. Thanks for answering that, Jamie. And we have last around 5 minutes or so. So if we have any further question to Monish, his experience, so please go ahead and shoot that. While I have a question for you, Monish. So beside the work life scenario, and since your employer is same, you are working on exactly same projects as you were working here in US. So what are the changes which you have seen, beside like work life or so, and you say that, oh, okay, that was expected, or that was like not so much into the visor. So how's that experience?
Sure. I think the biggest change is like people in Canada are like super nice. Even like US people for the most part are super nice, but like the Canadian culture in general is known for like welcoming and immigrants from all backgrounds and uh, all countries. So I guess that actually I knew from the start, and that has been true 2.5 months into it. Like they are super welcoming, immigrant friendly country. uh, on my day-to-day life, I think things haven't changed much. To be very frank, I was expecting like things might change like significantly because I was in like one of the bigger cities in LA, but I moved to Vancouver, which is also like super lively, nice with beautiful views and stuff. The weather is of course like sometimes a consideration for some people, but it wasn't like too important for me. The If you are, for that matter, if you have been to Seattle, the Vancouver weather is like super close to it. So that gives like people an idea that the weather in Vancouver is like almost close to Seattle. And I guess on the day-to-day basis, there haven't been many changes. I got my driver's license converted pretty easily from California. I got my banking sorted out in like 2 days, 3 days. I got my social insurance number like when I stood in like line just in an hour or so. So certain things you would definitely feel that they are like better than US, but there are also like certain things that are not better than US, but you can't like exactly make out which one is better here. Everything has its pros and cons, I would say.
Okay, we have one more question here, and feel free to answer. Either Monish or Jamie. So we just heard that there's an experience which MobSquad is looking for, like 3 years experience, right? So is someone working on OPT currently and does not meet that experience, or like misses that by a little, right? Because like let's say 2.5 years into the OPT and you are certain that okay, things are not looking well on H1B front. So would they make would they be able to make this move with Mob Squad of moving across from US to Canada?
I would share my experience first, and then let Jamie fill in whatever. I actually wasn't meeting that 3 year criteria. To be very frank, I just finished 3 year in September, 3 year of full time work experience in September. So I was able to move in with Mob Squad as I had also like the employer sort of support. But I don't think that there are any like sort of hard lines here.
Yeah, exactly. You said it perfectly, Monish. We do not, if you do not have 3 years of experience, that does not mean that you don't qualify. I misspoke, and sorry for the confusion. We're willing to work with anybody as long as their employer is willing to work with us. I think if you are looking for a new opportunity, most of our opportunities require at least 3 years of experience. But if you have a company that you're looking to stay with and is happy to have you relocate to Canada and work with an organization like us, it really doesn't matter. We will work with, even if you have less than 1 year of experience, we're always happy to have that conversation.
I see. Okay, so just to reiterate, folks, it's not anything that's related to your experience working in a tech company. So you are encouraged to apply whenever you feel like making a move from United States to Canada, and you are willing to take your talents across the border. Okay, we'll stick around for a minute. If there are any questions, please shoot them now and before we have Monish and Jamie go. But thank you so much for sharing your experience, Monish, and thank you so much for clearing some of the questions there, Jamie. Really appreciate your time, and your experience has been amazing. I do feel that you had like a wholesome experience moving from United States to Canada, and I hope
Right.
you were able to score some of the things which you were looking forward while you were moving, because moving countries
Right.
isn't really a piece of cake to it's not a cake walk
Right.
to have go, yeah. Okay. We have one more question. If I already have a PR, can I still work with MobSquad down the line?
I can jump in on this one. Yes, absolutely. We do work with actually Canadian PRs, Canadian citizens as well. If they are working for a company, let's say there's a company that wants to hire them in the US, but they don't have Canadian operations, so they can't hire you. We can be your employer in Canada. And then again, same model, just contract you back to that US company. So if you do ever get a job opportunity and live in Canada or are a Canadian PR and want to relocate back to Canada, and the company is open to having you relocate to Canada but can't hire you because they don't have operations, give us a call and we're happy to have that discussion as we can act essentially as your employer in Canada.
Okay, I hope that does help resolve the question. So, MobSquad isn't only a talent moving company, but also as an employer and would have opportunities from their clients, which they have existing, and can make like a bridge between your talent and the companies looking for tech talents. Uh, okay, I hope we have answered all of the questions. Once again, thank you, Monish. Thanks for showing up today and sharing your experience. I am certain that this has helped a lot of folks gain some clarity, gain some more vision into what they are planning. And thanks again, Jamie, for answering so many questions there. And I hope this has been a useful time for everybody in the chat.
Glad to be here. Thank you for interviewing us.
Thank you so
Right. Thanks.
much.
Thank you. Right. Have a nice day.